So greetings and salutations, everybody. Just a quick last sound check. Can you hear my voice? And you can hear Geshe. All right, and the video looks good and the streaming's working, so we are good to go. Thank you so much for sharing this beautiful sunny Sunday morning with us. So Tashidele, greetings to all. Geshe hopes that wherever you are, your study, your practice, all of your beneficial activities are going well. So then when we gather together on occasions like this, we can think of sort of three broad purposes of why we're gathering together. The first is to engage in a purification to clear away all of the negativities accumulated since beginningless lifetimes in samsara. So that is one purpose. And the second is that on times during occasions such as this, we engage in accumulations of the two collections of merit and wisdom. That is another great purpose. And so those first two, they act as the causes and conditions for the actual needed thing, for the main and last of these 3 points, which is to develop Dharma realizations, or we could also say to bring forth positive mental qualities, to bring forth new ones and to stabilize the ones we have. And so as we approach also texts like the one we're looking at, what we want to do is take the time to really sort of appreciate and absorb each word and its meaning in as stable a way as possible. And so in terms of these 3 purposes, right, in terms of a treatise or a text which will allow us to actualize those 3 purposes, you'd be hard-pressed to find a text that would be superior to the one we're looking at today, the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra, Way of the Bodhisattva. And we also know that the positive mental qualities, right, the ground that allows the positive mental qualities to grow, one way of expressing this is it is loving kindness. The mind of loving kindness is what allows these positive mental qualities to grow. So it's really easy to say, like, I'm a good person, I'm a relatively kind person, and generally we all like to think that about ourselves, but being consistently kind is actually not necessarily such an easy thing, and we'll encounter obstacles to showing that kindness. Is the sound okay, everybody? Okay. And so we could say that the king of kindness, or the king of the practices of loving kindness, is this mind of bodhicitta, which is rooted in love and compassion. So that is what we are trying to develop. So the mind of bodhicitta is also said to be like a hand which allows us to gather all positive qualities, all virtuous karma, and bring it towards us. And similarly, if we develop a feeling for bodhicitta, it is then said that the accumulation of all of the collections or practices will be very doable, very feasible. And in terms of purifying negative karma, bodhicitta is very powerful for this too. It is said to be like fire, which can burn through dry brush. It can get rid of that negative karma very effectively. And we see this, right? If you look at a bushfire, for example, the dry grass, the dry twigs, and so forth are incinerated very easily. And if the fire gets strong enough, not just the dry grass and the dry trees, but also the wet ones as well. And that's not necessarily a good thing, right? The guy's just saying he's not like advocating bushfires. Generally, he knows these aren't a positive thing, but this is just a visual example, right, for how the bodhicitta is able to effectively incinerate, to clear away our accumulated negativities. Oh. Yeah. And one of the main benefits of being in human form, of being a human being that abides in this desire realm, is that we can develop these sort of qualities that were mentioned. And so what we'll have is many different types of opportunities, right? Depending on what we engage with, we can put negative imprints in the mind, or we can put wholesome positive imprints in the mind, right? So it's important to distinguish. Ale de mare sure gone ngan norso ngan so de kam ye pick up la baksha chasangwa minya ginesore saya ginesore. Yeah, sorry. So I have to correct myself. So within the desire realm, depending upon what we engage with, depending on the conditions as well that we encounter, there are opportunities for both positive and negative imprints to ripen, to be activated. Gonda. Denesu kamdang sumikam? And so what we want to do is engage with the conditions and the activities that are going to enable the activation or the ripening of those positive imprints. We want to learn how to do that. So then with bakshak niga sukandang sukmekam bakshak niga. Nyempa denso. Nyempa ma sena dene. Okay. So in the form and the formless realms, so that bakshak yapo chikpo minye duksha resta So then within the form and the formless realm, right? So in the form and the formless realms, it's a little bit of a different situation, right? Because of the qualities of those realms, it's actually very difficult for negative imprints to ripen. And normally you would think that that's a good thing, but the thing is, it's not that the negative imprints are not there, right? It's just that they are hindered from ripening. And the disadvantage of this is that those things never ripen into suffering. If you don't encounter any suffering at all, it is very difficult to bring forth the mind of renunciation or definite emergence to enter the path and so forth. So that's the disadvantage. So what happens is that for a period of, we could even say hundreds of years, if you're in some of the higher form or formless realms, you are in a situation where effectively your negative karma is still there, but it is hindered from ripening. And because it is hindered from ripening, you're only having pleasant experiences and you remain completely immersed in that bliss or happiness. Because of that, you're not cultivating new positive karma. And then what happens for the majority of beings in this realm, when their time as the form or formless realm deva comes to an end, because they've burned through so much positive karma and the imprints of negativity are still there, often they end up in the lower realms of existence. So it's a sad situation, right? Because they're experiencing bliss, but that bliss is coming from the virtuous karma that they've accumulated. So that eventually gets exhausted. Because they're just in this state of experiencing bliss, they're unable to cultivate further virtue, right? Which makes the future situation more dire. So in the desire realm, actually, what happens is we come across unpleasant experiences and we witness a lot of suffering. So from the point of view of practice, this can actually be a helpful thing if we are able to actualize the practice of taking obstacles into the path. And within the desire realm as well, if we are able to come to higher levels of cultivation, we can develop things like the wisdom realizing emptiness. Right. And so a new direct realization of emptiness is something that is not possible as a form or formless realm deva, right? So that's another major disadvantage of those realms. So we can see actually, although we talk about its disadvantages sometimes, that there are many qualities of the desire realm which we inhabit as well. So now that we understand that we have this big opportunity, what we want to do is use it wisely, right? We want to proceed in a good way. Sorry, just a terminology question. So I thought maybe it's interesting. I don't know, maybe it's not interesting, maybe it isn't interesting. So I got confused earlier because Geshe was using dukam. So dukam is a Tibetan word which means the realm of desire, right? Which is one of these three realms, desire, form, and formless. And he was using dupa to say dukam. And dupa also means wish. So I got confused as to what he was talking about. But Geshe was explaining to me that dukam and dupa can be used interchangeably. So if you're interested in language things, maybe that's interesting. Yeah. Right. Yeah, so Geshe said it is a bit confusing because dupa, normally you say like, do I have this wish? Do I have this desire or not, right? But contextually, you can also use dupa to say a being of the desire realm or the desire realm itself. So we are going to proceed in a relaxed way. So in meditation, let us calm the mind and bring the four elements into balance. Whatever thought arises, whether it's negative, whether it is a positive, just put it aside, leave it aside for a moment, and rest in the neutral, equanimous nature of the mind.
Timban ta timba tene mepi ta dawa dondawa ta se notula sopa to chomepi se kanga tsuma chani la dawa dondawa siwo tsuma chiyo sopa chi.
So think that in this way, through calming the mind, then it is like a full moon night with a cloudless sky, because there are no mental projections, no distracting thoughts. There is this clear, cloudless sky and moon.
Kanga siwo so toya dawa noji kanga la ta pake sone cawi kala kone ta chungyi reja sira mande tene kiwo che toya ka ta tene rungi sa chenpo chiyo sopa chi sete.
And think that this mind, like the clear moon in the cloudless autumn sky, allows us to perceive things with clarity. Regjasana?
Huh?
Regja chiklas, tikar.
Ya chungyi reja cawa cawi kala chungwa chiya yorwa.
And we can also think that the mind's nature, like the rays of the moon, are cooling. They can dispel the suffering of heat.
Rongdeyo cha tsungwa zuba zha toya, yedeyo tashinpa zha toya ka tatani nipa pusu tsuba chi yo soba chi.
In this mind, not only does it allow to achieve our own welfare perfectly, it also allows us to work for the welfare of others completely.
Tandi nipa diya memba la senji kuzu ngo, senji dedo ngo, nidi pake cha tsungwa ta riba shiba zane ta yang zho kagandu soba chi.
But in order to be able to tap into, to actualize the power of our mind fully, we need to be able to understand, to comprehend both its relative nature and its ultimate nature.
Nungwa kari hinayo, pa tsungma so, nungwa denpa kari hinayo, ta nye nyansi ri nila. Ta tani rungje kanga la ta penpa jache wadrugi soba chi.
If we are able to understand how things do not exist as they appear, if we are able to understand how things do not exist truly or inherently,
Nese kanga shi nila tani rungje kanga la penpa jache wadrugi soba chi.
then if we can understand this, we can understand all phenomena fully, which will be of great benefit to both ourselves and others.
Tandri soma nujin yuwa chi ta, soha se chi ta taga yo soba chi.
Just as we wish or think in this motivation, we will, with single pointedness, request the blessings of the holy beings to accomplish. So we'll begin with the prayers. Just turn the sound for musicians on. So we'll begin with the praise to Shakyamuni Buddha. Umbo chom den de de shin che bo ro chom bo yon da ba zo be song ge je ba dong sha su den ba de wa she bo je den gen ba ge bu de we ka lo gyor wa la na me ba la dong mi nam gi den ba song ge chon den de pe ja wa sha ja tu ba la cha ze lo che de gyab zu chi o Tenpa chonten de deshin shepa cha chompa yonta pa zobe sanje shepa dan shasu tenpa dewa shepa shiten chenpa chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana mepa ladon minam ki tenpa sanje chonten de pechawa shaja doba la shansa lo che de gyabsu chi o tenpa chonten de deshin shepa cha chompa Yonda ba zube sanje reba dan shasu denpa dewa sheba shiten chenpa chebu dewe kalo jorwa lana meba ladon minam ki tenpa sanje chonden de pechawa shaja dupa la chanse lo che de kyabsu chi Mandala offering So ji begi je me do zhang ji ra lin ji ni de gen ba di song je shin de me de bo wa ye ro gu nang da ji la je ba ro yi dong gu ru rat na men da la kam ni ya da ya mi Refuge and bodhicitta Sanje je don so je jo na la jong che ba de da ne ja so jo da gi chen yin gi be so na je do la ben je re sang je do wa sho sanje je don so ge che nam la jong che ba de da ne ja so jo da gi chen yin gi be so na je do la ben je re sang ge jo Sho sanje che dan so ge che nam lai chang che bar de da ne kya su che da gi chi nyen gi be so na je ro la pen je sanje ro ba sho
Oh yeah, that come on.
So now we will take a moment to develop our motivation in meditation. And this connects with, as always, with whenever we are engaging in the practice of what is wholesome, we need to make sure that that activity is complete in the beginning, the middle, and the end. So if we want to have stable happiness, we need its causes, which means that we need to engage in virtue with the way that is complete in the beginning, middle, and end. And if we develop this habit, as was stated before, this will help us to engage very stably, effectively with the accumulations. It will help us also to very stably be able to purify negativities and obscurations. And so one of the reasons that we want to engage with stability in the practices of virtue is out of a concern for our next life, right? We want to make sure that that virtue is stable and powerful so that we don't go to more unfortunate realms of existence.
다 세네라 대제도 손도 그러와 되는 얘네 칸일즈 보시는 쇼지 세도 손지 공부서 아주 자자자 샤와샤망에 손 로기셔는 요라치 못 차티하레스.
So it's like easy to say that we're committed to bodhicitta, striving towards Buddhahood and so forth just from our lips, right? But if we don't pay attention to karma, if we end up in one of the unfortunate realms of existence, it will be very difficult to practice those at all. So if you really see your own welfare, yourself as something important, right, then one of your first tasks is to be able to ensure to avoid, right, those unfortunate states of rebirth. So one of the ways to do that then is to build up a mass of powerful virtue, which is powerful because it is complete in the beginning, middle, and end, right? That can prevent it. Kyamdro. Yeah. And in addition to that, another really effective practice to prevent an unfortunate future for ourselves is to go for refuge. To go for refuge to the three jewels, and then in addition to that, to abide by the trainings or the advice of refuge. This will help with that as well. And so these practices are actually easy and accessible because you don't need to be a skilled meditator necessarily to follow along with these practices, right? These are things that all of us are able to do. Yeah, those. So if we go back to these devas of the form and formless realms, right, there is a story from the Buddha's lifetime where they sort of played out the scenario that Geshe outlined earlier, that they had been enjoying these heavenly realms, and then they saw, because actually devas possess a measure of clairvoyance, they saw that their karma was going to be exhausted and they were going to be reborn in the lower realms. Now the Buddha ascended to those realms for a time, and so they asked him, Lord, what should we do? And the Buddha replied that actually you should go for refuge in the triple gem, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, and in this way avoid going to the lower realms. And so if we speak about the advice or trainings of refuge, the main one actually is to avoid harming any living being. So we can see, very understandable, why that is something beneficial, right? Who could take argument with that? But practicing in the way that was outlined, while it may be enough to prevent those rebirths in the lower realms, it is not going to bring us to that level of higher happiness, a stable happiness that we are seeking, right? Just a better rebirth cannot do that. So in order to achieve this, then what we need to do is engage in the three higher trainings. And so on the basis of these three higher trainings, now maybe some people aren't familiar, those are ethics, concentration, and wisdom. If we engage with this in a stable way, we can reach that lasting happiness. So in other words, this is enough for us to achieve the state of moksha, of liberation. And we could say the essence, the very heart of these trainings in ethics, concentration, and wisdom is the wisdom realizing emptiness. Right, so like the sword that that Manjushri uses to cut through misunderstandings, the true meaning is revealed.
다 대그에서 프레시아지래. 다 노아 강가 밤 매와서야지. 대제 첨본이 왔어.
No,
Yeah.
So from understanding the way things really are, the way that they really abide, this is important because what that does is it allows us to clear away all misunderstandings.
대래. 다 소소 집어를 던지시 라기요 하르테네. 다 대루데 차수 조요 말에. 루데 타시요 말에. 다 니나지나.
And so normally we say that through achieving moksha or liberation, one is liberated from suffering, but to be really sort of accurate, actually you haven't yet reached the completion of your own welfare just through liberation alone.
루데 타시면은 제대 딜레주 타셔야요 말에스.
And if you haven't reached the perfection of your own welfare, the completion of your own welfare, then how can you contribute to the welfare of others in the best way possible?
다 던지지 다 손주시 세도 다 대돈되네 다 돈주도 비시란 걸 받고 그 알았어.
And so it is for that reason, actually, that we need not only this wisdom, we need to develop that wisdom realizing emptiness along with bodhicitta.
다 저야 그 사오지 테스트 다 됐어.
So Geshe, remember the point? It's a little heavy though, so he's going to share it later. He's always afraid of scaring people away at the beginning of class.
다 찔라는 저기 봐.
Okay.
니네 저는 가서 강가 시에케도 니에케 강가 치는 눈에 시부 증어요 봐시 갈래 가버려 돼요. 알았다.
So Geshe was just thinking of a commentary of a lama who was mentioning that from the perspective both of the speaker of the Dharma and those who are listening to the Dharma, to bring forth a motivation even of the lower of the three scopes is very difficult.
So
if people here have already realized bodhicitta, this doesn't apply to you, right? But for most of us, it's difficult even to bring forth that lower scope motivation. Right. So I was saying to Geshe, this is in a lot of texts, like liberation in the palm of your hand, but Geshe said actually all the Lamrim texts speak of this. And he said there's one easy way to determine if we have developed that lower scope motivation or not. Chirang kumares lunglangna denet. So if somebody calls you a thief falsely, and that upsets you and that disturbs you, this is a sign that you don't have a stable practice of the lower of the three scopes, actually. So it shows us, right, like what we're aspiring to, of course, is the great scope, right, the bodhisattva path, but even to go on the stepping stones towards there, the lower scope is not something so easy. So what Geshe is sharing, Geshe said, isn't just like an opinion of his, right? This is the advice shared by realized teachers and their texts, great holy beings. Yeah. So let's define then what is a stable realization of the lower scope motivation. One way to explain this would be in terms of your consideration about this life and your consideration or concern for future lives. The concern for future lives always outweighs the concern about this current life. Yeah. And so one holy being shared with his students, so check, right? So check your motivation and say, like, do I have a stable lower scope motivation or not? And I guess some of his students or her students were in the affirmative, and they said, yes. And they said, okay, but if I were to call you a thief right now, how would you feel about this, right? And then this sort of showed that maybe it wasn't so stable. Because what does it mean? If you can't withstand, like, a false accusation even, not like a direct physical harm, but a false accusation even, that shows that you're very concerned about reputation and things in this current lifetime, that's a primary concern.
다 못어서 다 당긴이 라야 돼 다른 바서 온디와 스테이지 간가 다른 마또 뭐니 가 침벌 다 떠더래 디어레스
Rinpoche sene kibusume.
야 당긴이 시에서 와서 터자
So then in terms of these points, right, these three scopes, in order to go to our objects of attainment, this is very important to understand and to sort of cultivate in stages and sequence.
덤버티 쿠바 투타서 언더버레 덤버티 템보면아 아니 올리도 전에 다 전리게 다 바치 릴라워지 돈에 간가 둘라 돈도 그러와스
So we know that if the foundation of a house is poorly constructed, right, then the second story and the third story of that house are going to be really unstable, and a powerful wind and so forth could easily damage them.
더같이 신라면다 니제와 가제마게 가제선하고 템보면은 거다 릴라오면 되와스
So it doesn't matter if like the apartment on the third floor is painted with beautiful colors or very tastefully decorated. If the foundation of the house is not stable, it's going to get blown over in the wind, right? Yeah.
다 못았다 그런 디디시다는 이건다
So Geshe said, sorry, got a little carried away with the preliminary comments, but we are just going to do a really brief motivation meditation, and then we are going to continue. So like setting down a cup of water to allow the particles to settle in the water's clarity, then take a moment to settle your mind and your body. So with the mind peaceful and relaxed, let us bring our awareness to the breath.
처음에 비세간가 콜레가 메니탈 로르소소다 세시와 레레요 소바지
Through rendering the unwholesome minds inactive, we can tap into the peaceful, calm nature of the mind.
세사와다 다완다고 디게다 세텔라데미 나티 간디 신두 여보 자와지
So now that we've tapped into the mind's moon-like clarity, we can begin our process of investigation. When we speak of the I or the self, what is that really like?
nga sen shu chimbo chowaji ya de nga tan tan de tani chowayo sa nga de kanji sindu kawandu delandu meldu.
So we have, when we say I or self, this feeling that there is an I or self that is really present. So we have that feeling, but what is that feeling based upon? Is that I, that self, really there or not? If there is an I, is that somewhere within the body that it's located, or is it located in the mind?
단지 자에 다 옆었다와 이는 다 리도세 공랑 연습을 주사면 돼봐. 저 야생 보진데 왔어.
So as we engage in that investigation, eventually what we'll see is that there is no pinpointable, findable self that we can point to within either the body or the mind.
롱예 로스 지주 용조데 든지지 저거 주사지 다 요아래 소노톤에 코데 요아래 되네 강연요데 요아래 니지 som바 니지 슈토보.
So think myself, others, all 6 types of migrators within samsara. From thinking there's a pinpointable, findable self when there isn't, this ignorance is what keeps them circling within samsara, encountering those problems. Develop a real sense of compassion that they are in this predicament.
예네슬 때네 매바지를 요아래 소노톤에 타네다 코알다 코데 요아래.
So thinking that this situation, which is actually false, a false appearance which doesn't exist, is the way things are, that misconception keeps them circling and circling within samsara.
다루로 소설 거 같이 모여 이제 니에네스 강가 다른 시바도 리바존에 용조 코와동에서 등안에 저기 디체트 다 손지 공부적이.
So think I have this opportunity now to develop this realization, which will allow me to see the way things really are. And having developed this, I will be able to lead sentient beings away from the suffering of the lower realms and samsara generally. In order to do this, I must achieve Buddhahood, bring forth bodhicitta. So we'll pause there. So if we really want to be able to have this realization of emptiness effectively, the emptiness of the I or the self must be realized. So we start with the I for investigation. So of course, all of the outer things of samsara lack inherent existence as well, but in terms of the realization of a lack of inherent existence and emptiness of natural existence, we start that investigation with the I or the self. And one reason is in part because it's easier to discern that for the self, right? That lack of inherent existence. So if we take, for example, the body and the mind, and we think of the trying to locate the self within the body or the mind, right? So the emptiness of the mind is actually said to be easier to realize than the emptiness of, the emptiness of the self by investigating the mind is said to be easier to discover than the emptiness of the self by investigating, in other words, trying to locate it within the body. Right. But another thing that's really important on this journey is that in order to understand emptiness, we need to think of examples. We need to think of helpful metaphors. And so we have the magicians or the conjurer's illusions. We have things being dreamlike and so forth. And another one that is really helpful in the modern day is to think how the things that appear so vividly on the screen of our television or the screen of our mobile, when we turn that off, they dissolve and disappear completely. Yeah. So those images in the screen, right? they can make you feel really angry sometimes. They can also make you feel really strong attachment sometimes. But when you turn off the screen, you realize that they were never really there at all.
다 온가하게 놀려서 길라 배도 첨벌해서 기가래서 다 그냥 개파수가
And many scholars actually say that how things are arising within the screen and disintegrating within the screen. This is very useful for practitioners of Tantra as well.
다 이나 그런 멋지 전에 배가로운 저 왔더니 견다서 죽은데 왔어. 대온가하게 놀려 배도 그래서 기가래서
So, we have this incredible technology where you can have a person on a screen and with that technology transform them into a completely different person or even into an object, right? And this is often how visualizations unfold in Tantra as well.
다 텐데 주세요 알아와 진짜 도만라고 지시다 히레진다고 시다 대칼레 칼레 소소가 라면고 요이도 그 연다고 건조와 또 그래 다 텐데 걸리라고 지가래
So, we have these visualizations where we can have Vittara or Avalokiteshvara, right? And we can think that they are in aspect our spiritual master. They can dissolve into the spiritual master and the other way around. So these are all kind of, flowing aspects of tantric meditation similar to those images.
다 되게 좀 단디서 와야 다 당한서 저
So we are going to go to the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra now. And in terms of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra, we are on chapter 5, verse Chuchikra, verse 11.
어따로로 소설 로주시도 때 간지서 그래서는 물론 되잖아. 다 차송화도 가시 되네. 나한테도 테스트 자토바. 소소 이나요 다니다 미자바 이나래. 미셴 따와 이나래. 손을 또야 여바지서 그거 알았어.
So in terms of studying a text like the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra, what sort of aspiration do we want to have when we study it? Well, one aspiration that we should have is that if somebody asks us about something in the text, we should be able to give some sort of explanation. It doesn't have to be, scrutinizing, but some sort of general explanation or understanding. Another thing that we want to develop is that as we become familiar with the text through studying it, we want to be able to glance at those verses and immediately bring forth somewhat of a meaning.
다 되네 갈래 다 대용용 거는 제만 맞아 봐서 가라왔어.
And so once that understanding is in place, then we want to look at the text again and again so that we don't forget its instructions, so that the instructions become a part of us.
나저 첨부지가 그래서 신기여에서는 신기여서 가르래서 첨부지에서나 되네 시야 말을 다 사와래.
Oh gosh, that's like really discouraging for me. I don't know. Maybe you guys would find it encouraging. But anyways, if you say that you've had a teaching or that you know this text a little bit, and then if somebody asks you about a section of the text, you know this section and you've forgotten it, then that's a sign that you didn't really know it, right? Yeah. Yeah. So knowing something and forgetting it are opposites, right? So if you've forgotten something, you necessarily don't know it. So we're in a situation where if we're honest, we're going to say, okay, I think I understood a little bit about it at one point, but by now I've forgotten it again, right? That's the situation for many of us. So just to be clear, like we're not expecting that you're going to remember every word of the text here, right? But you want to have the idea of the general meanings and progression, right? That's going to be very helpful. Right. So Geshe said also, when you have the information there in the mind, this is very useful. So he finds sometimes if he's having problems falling asleep, he'll go through the various reasonings and scriptures that he's memorized, and in this way he can fall asleep very peacefully, very easily. Yeah, so lots of reasons to try to fulfill. And so just as a reminder, we're in the 5th chapter of the Bodhisattvacaryāvatāra. Now this can be translated as guarding introspection or sometimes as mindfulness, but Geshe said that many commentators have actually said that we could also say that this is a chapter on ethics.
실로가 내바시사 주비 개자 말에 소속의 세가 니바 주야 개자래 대조시요.
So we're now going to turn to a discussion of the perfection of ethics. And what the text is saying here is that when we say that ethics has been perfected, that doesn't mean that all of the harmful things that happen in the world have stopped. When we say that ethics has been perfected, it means that soso nubakeyo maredanda.
매미 소속의 세가 노노네 니바 주야 개자래 마도 실로는 내바 파지 매비 주로야 개자 말에.
It's that the harmful attitudes and actions within the mind and so forth have stopped, not that the whole world becomes ethical or that there's no harm.
대인은 것만에 손지도 전지선바 비도 보시는 매바 장도 그래서 왔어.
Because if we say that the perfection of ethics means that there is only ethics in the world and no harm, then the perfection of ethics, which Buddhas and Bodhisattvas necessarily cultivate and perfect, that wouldn't make any sense, right? You'd have to say that they haven't really perfected ethics, which is not the case.
뭐야, 냐라 소바 공시의 대다 세문저와 본인세는 토발에 츠쯤 바로 신바시.
Verse 11, nowhere has the killing of fish and other creatures been eradicated, for the attainment of merely the thought to forsake such things is explained as the perfection of ethical discipline.
ndi송아 오다 든지 소소근이니라 세게 놀로니 오다 현재 간지지는 뭐세 빅하게 어떤 니바 첨부치 저거 대래 마도 저 다시 봐서나
Yeah.
그래 실로는 내가 매뵙게 좀 말해.
So this means the absence of harm in the world is not the measure of the perfection of ethics. It's within an individual who is able to say, I will completely refrain from harming any being. That is an example of the perfection of ethics.
맨셔도 임바도 츠트세나 예 당한도 멀리 임바도 칼라테야도 다 든지 좋아요 와서
Yeah.
대지 임비 샤워레마도 임방이네데 돈이 셈바테레스.
Right. So another thing to clarify this also with the paramita or the perfection of generosity, right? Generosity is, we often think of it as giving something like food or an object or something to somebody. So just to be clear, that is the action of generosity. But the mind of generosity is actually relinquishing one's wealth or enjoyments. And that's how the perfection of generosity is measured.
다 츠트게 되레스. 다 농거세 수인 셈바 츠트게 세니레스.
So a mind which guards, in other words, a mind which guards against harm or non-virtue, this is defined as ethics. So this is what the practice of ethics is. And so when we speak about the perfection of generosity, normally we say that it has 4 essential points. And when we speak of the perfection of ethics, this is said to have 3 main points.
다 주니바.
그렇죠. 숨진 소 가르래. So 좀 get something so lakonso lagu. I said that maybe we should share what those three points of ethics are, because maybe some people don't know. So the first is refraining from misdeeds, the ethics of refraining from misdeeds. Geshe said you could say the ethics of refraining from harming sentient beings as well. It's another way of understanding it. The second is the ethics of consistently engaging in virtue. That's the second one. And the third is the ethics of working for the welfare of others, or the ethics of working for the welfare of sentient beings. Right. So working for the ethics of working for the welfare of sentient beings, this is the core of the Bodhisattva's practice. Oh, right. So Geshe said that also when we speak about the ethics of working for the benefit of sentient beings, much of what a bodhisattva does is that. But here what's really being pointed at is where they actually kind of put their body in the line to benefit and protect those sentient beings. That is the ultimate fulfillment of that ethics of working for the benefit of others.
하고 살아다고 생체 무시 노가제 대도 연지 요마 딱 군도 제바요 이반다 버레서 트레이센스 지조나 다데 토제 조던라.
So next, as we come to verse 12, we are using a similar line of reasoning to discuss the paramita, the perfection of patience or forbearance. Unruly beings are as unlimited as space. They cannot possibly all be overcome. But if I overcome thoughts of anger alone, this will be equivalent to vanquishing all foes.
다 컨트롤 본세나. 예, 컨트롤 본세나. 실로게 요 컨트롤 사사 제네 미 존로 이렇게 저래면 소소게 세 아까서라 어 컨트롤 이제 좀 맞아야 되래.
Right. So when we say defeated anger or having overcome anger, that doesn't mean that the external objects or people that you could possibly get angry with are no longer there anymore, right? It means that you have stopped the arising of anger within your own mind.
다 배가 다 던지가 다 막아치 뭐다 라마라고 라마지나 다 던지 잡아지 사래.
별라.
쟁코노 디세리오 데니라. 지마 야르모치 투소스. 지가 좋아서 거지마 찔레 자가. 아니 데디칼 코센코노 디세리오 데베칼 아니 칼레 카쇼 가르슈소 쟁코노. 근데 게제티바이스.
So then Geshe is recollecting a story of a great Lama and a great meditator in Tibet. And he was in Tibet at the time that the country was taken over. And eventually he was able to escape to India. And he had an audience with His Holiness the Dalai Lama. And His Holiness asked him, like, what was the most difficult experience that you had during those years in prison?
쟁코노르다.
Prison labai. Yeah, that's what prison is. And first he said, well, there were a couple of times where I sort of came to a dangerous point. That was how he described it. And so His Holiness thought, oh gosh, the poor fellow, he must have nearly lost his life a couple of times, right? That's what His Holiness was thinking. But actually what he clarified with His Holiness was that there were a couple of times where he came close to losing his bodhicitta or his compassion. And this was a person who, without any real reason was imprisoned and also, experienced some torture during that time. And so His Holiness was really amazed, right, that he kept that as his primary concern. So this shows us what stable practice can do. That stable practice places the firm imprints within our mind, and those are going to help us no matter what sort of a difficult situation we may find ourselves in. So the secret here is if we overcome the mind of anger within ourselves, all of the rising of anger annoyance due to that external object is going to be stopped for our experience, right? So this point is that with that inner thing, all of the outer dangers are overcome. And this is similar to the story of Lord Milarepa. We know that an evil teacher dispatched a young girl who gave Milarepa some sort of drink or food with poison. And as Milarepa was about to take a sip of this, she brought forth a mind of regret. And she said, please don't drink this. It is poisoned. And he told her that actually, because I have defeated the poisons within, there is no external poison that could possibly harm me. Yeah. So Geshe said, to be clear, because he said, yeah, he doesn't want people, it's the woman's fault again. No, it's not. It was not her fault. There was this evil Geshe named Geshe Tsapungwa. So Geshe Tsapungwa, he kind of brainwashed or misled her, you know, in order to cause this harm to Milarepa. So it was his fault, actually. Yeah. So there's a little bit also of a history between Geshe Tsapungwa and Milarepa that Geshe wants to share. So it reminds Geshe of one of the Geshes from Luziling, and this particular Geshe, very respected, he spent a lot of time teaching in Ladakh. And he was a contemporary of Geshe-la's uncle Khensu-Delik Rinpoche and you know, the other Baksal Geshes, so that old generation. So Geshe-la knew him because although he was of his uncle's age, he actually never did the 1 year of tantric studies that normally follows your Geshe degree. So eventually he wanted to complete this, and he came to do the year of tantric studies at the same time that Geshe was doing his tantric studies at Gyume Monastery. Ale. Right. So he so he related to Geshe-la that actually when he was in Ladakh, he had a friend who was also, you know, like one of the Baksal teachers, one of the older generation of lamas who would come over from Tibet. And this lama, Geshe said he thinks he was probably from the Kagyu, but maybe from the Nyingma tradition. He said to this Geshe, you know, this Geshe killed Milarepa. You know, he assassinated Milarepa, and he was kind of saying it in this way, like, you know, this Geshe was a Galugpa, right? And so this perturbed Geshe-la's friend. Okay, that's the same thing. Yeah. And kids get a holiday banging, but yeah, keep it lava is. Yeah. Alengazo Gelupasa, Jiro Japan, Janet Serio. So the thing in a Gelupaji, and so then he said, so his reply was, our understanding of Geluk is a little bit different. Our understanding of Geluk is those disciples that followed Tsongkhapa. But Lord Milarepa was alive well before the time of Tsongkhapa. So I don't know what Geshes you're talking about. Kokadambagi Geshe denero. Yeah. Listen. Otate would send to us. Ota Geshe said, so Geshe said that because this Kuminkare Tapua? Sapupa. So this Geshe Tsapupa, Geshe said, because he has Geshe at the beginning of his name, a lot of people think that he's like a follower of Tsongkhapa and the Gelug tradition, but actually he wasn't, because at Milarepa's time, Tsongkhapa hadn't even been alive yet. Yeah, that mocha Geshe said, ta mombochiga Gelupal Kotoga was, Taterem, was Geshe said, Kokepachiga, Rotuchi. And so there's another point of clarification here, right? Like Geshe has come to be understood as a scholastic title that is given in the Gelug tradition, but actually Geshe or Kalyana Mitra, this is something that can be used for any learned scholar, really. Yeah. So this is a story that Geshe heard directly from this old Loziling Lama himself. Yeah. He was a very carefree person, Geshe. So verse number 13, Geshe said, an amazing verse, and this is one that you always want to remember in your life. You always want to remember in your life. And you know, all of the realized teachers, when the time comes to give for advice, this is one of their sort of go-to verses to give helpful advice. Where would I possibly find enough leather with which to cover the surface of the earth? But wearing leather just on the soles of my shoes is equivalent to covering the earth with it.
차바바바 누지 속에 왔습니다. 말다.
So look at the world as it is right now, the unbelievable wars that are being fought, the harm and the violence that is, part of our world. It's almost unbelievable.
어따때 가서노 가르또 그자레스. 내가 시키 조야가 거서 다 조세나만데 매바 조야가 다 손치기라 되는 용기야.
So what are the people who are fighting these wars or starting these wars often thinking? They're thinking, okay, like there's this bad enemy and they're causing all of the problems. So if I'm going to defeat this enemy, then those problems are going to stop. Right? So we've been fighting as human beings wars for hundreds and hundreds, thousands and thousands of years. And not one of those wars has been able to bring harmony to this relatively small, from some perspectives, small Earth planet, right? It just has not been effective. And not only on the basis of these wars is peace not happening, but on the basis of these wars, slowly, we're destroying our own home, which is this Earth planet. So what this verse is pointing to is that even if we're able to defeat one enemy, another enemy will soon rise to take their place and defeat and arise again and again and again. So this is not effective.
It's
like the similar thing if you were going to walk across like a very rocky field or where somebody had smashed some broken glass and you're like, I'm going to clear this entire field so that I can walk on it. That's not going to be the most practical approach. Yeah. But if you were to get a pair of shoes or sandals, right, then you're going to be able to walk in many different settings without encountering any problem. So through practicing in this way, all of the outer problems will naturally cease. It's like getting that pair of sandals. So as a preliminary practice, we often try to bring forth a positive mind. And really, if we bring forth a mind of love and kindness in a stable way, what we'll see is that so many of those outer problems and experience that cause us problems, they no longer do so. So the holy beings, we can see that through this cultivating this practice, wherever they go, they have the help of the Dharma protectors. No matter what a difficult or disharmonious place they end up in, they can always maintain a happy mind. So if we think of the story of if we think of the story of the first Dalai Lama, Gendun Drupa, the story goes that actually a great conflict was unfolding in the place where his family lived. So the point came where the family had to flee and they had to hide the little baby away for a time. So then his family actually had thought they'd be able to retrieve him relatively quickly, but in fact the conflict kind of raged on for a couple of days. So it was only a couple of days that later that they were able to come back, and they felt terrible and were pretty sure he would no longer be alive. But when they came to the place where they had hidden Gendundrup, there was actually a large, I don't know if it was a crow or a raven, a large crow or a raven that was protecting him. Yeah. And so then later, Gendundrup sort of developed a relationship with the six-armed, swift-acting protector, so Mahākāla. And actually, Mahākāla told him that, you see, you maybe didn't realize it at the time, but I was that raven, you know, I was there protecting you. Right. 추자서는 right. 추자 내내 그 가르쳤어.
뒷눈에 치자지고 걸었죠. 나와서 강가를 로빠제 다저 지터.
And if we look at the Jatakamalas, the stories of the previous lifetimes of the Buddha, right, there are the stories where the Buddha, as a bodhisattva, he was reborn as a kind of water bird, and he was able to guard his flock and maintain them in harmony.
자보지가 가디나 포르노는 맞다데리. 체자 대진 걸어서 들어온다고 지요. 잔디잖아요. 찌디가 쏘서네.
So the king of this, so it's like there was like a palace beside some sort of lake or lagoon, and the king would look out onto this lagoon and he would see the birds there, and whenever there was a disturbance or whatever, this one bird would kind of come in and everything would be restored, the peace and the harmony would be restored. Yeah, and so the king said to one of his ministers, I've been observing this bird and it has a lot to teach us, so we have to figure out some way to kind of get this bird into our presence. We have to observe and learn from it.
तने दार लेम्बोर जी दार बा मो यार वास ओ ता छया बो गरे पों या बो गरे चा दु शिया बो गरे तने तेज कांगा जाबो दे जोची सोवास.
Right. And so then the minister said, well, if we observe it, we see that the first thing that this bird does is he finds a place where the water is calm. He makes sure that it is clean, and he makes sure that it is surrounded with grass and other things for them to eat, right? So securing those resources is the first step to harmony.
Yeah.
So if we accumulate the causes, then we can be happy all the time. Verse number 14. Likewise, it is not possible for me to restrain the external course of things, but should I restrain this mind of mine, what would be the need to restrain all else? So again, the same principle. If we try to focus on defeating the outer enemies, there will be no end to that process of defeating the outer enemies. So therefore, it makes sense to tame and train one's mind. Verse number 15. Although the development of merely a clear state of concentration can result in taking rebirth in Brahma's realm, physical and verbal actions cannot so result when accompanied by weak mental conduct. And I think here it's talking about concentration. So one thing that this verse is pointing to is out of the activities of body, speech, and mind, it is those of the mind that are the most powerful and significant. Yeah. Yeah. So what it's saying first is the development of a clear state of concentration. So just a moment of pure concentration, this becomes a cause to be reborn in Brahma's realm. So what Geshe is saying is you can be reborn as like a deva, powerful deva like Brahma, but basically we're speaking about being reborn in the form and formless realms, which he discussed earlier. So, of course, concentration is powerful enough to take us to the peak of samsara, right? To the very most favorable of the realms within cyclic existence. But actually, beyond that, and more important, is that through developing our concentration, we can progress towards moksha or liberation. So, the body and speech alone, those activities alone are not able to build up enough of a powerful cause to achieve rebirth in such a realm, whereas with the mind, one can. Di tsunju go tsuya, right? Ale, chunga. Yeah. Yeah. Verse number 16, the knower of reality has said that even if recitation and physical hardships are practiced for long periods of time, they will be meaningless if the mind is distracted elsewhere. Yeah. Yeah. So Geshe said, when we study, right, we want to do so in a stable way, try to keep our mind stable, because if we have a lot of things happening in the background and our mind is flitting from place to place, right, then we are not going to be able to develop that steady realization. So what Śāntideva is saying here is that our practices of recitation, so he means reciting mantras and so forth, our practices of study and meditation, if we're doing that, but our mind is really somewhere else, we are not going to be able to get, right, the best kind of benefit. And so the knower of reality here is Śāntideva's way of saying, this isn't just my opinion, right? That this is what Lord Buddha himself has said. So verse number 17, even those who wish to find happiness and overcome misery will wander with no aim nor meaning if they do not comprehend the secret of the mind, the paramount significance of Dharma. Right. So the supreme Dharma is the one which really allows us to guard our mind. So here Bachelor is saying this as the secret of the mind, but Geshe is saying it's actually the guarding of the mind. Oh, sorry. So this can also be understood as secret. Sorry. It can also be understood as secret. And Geshe said, when we hear secret, we usually think, oh, it's secret mantra, right? We're talking about Vajrayana practice. But if we understand this word as secret, the secret that it is pointing to is not secret mantra. The secret that it is pointing to is actually the wisdom realizing emptiness. So that secret is the supreme mind of the wisdom realizing emptiness. This is the paramount understanding of Dharma, and without this, we will not be able to stop the cycling through samsara. In other words, we won't be able to find happiness and stop suffering. If emptiness is realized, liberation. If emptiness is unrealized, samsara, cyclic existence. This is a very pith instruction. And this is why out of all of the various qualities that we could develop, right, one of the most important ones is this wisdom realizing emptiness. So as we say, we want to start trying to understand this emptiness by things that are immediately at hand. So we think about the I or the self, right? So we say, where is the self? Is it locatable somewhere within the body? Is it locatable somewhere within the mind? And then, we can move on to the phenomena of our immediate environment, right? Where is this truly existing house? Or where is this truly existing room? So our experience is when we say I, we immediately think that there is this I that is immediately tangible, that is independent, that is able to exist without other causes and conditions. That's the perception that is there.
당이 가진 거 맛이 있어요. 맞어. 네, 들바 동보테 나한테 쫙 만다 보지. 소속 땜보지 손으로 또 차례스.
Right. So when we first think of I and we don't investigate the concept, the I seems like something that's almost as solid as a suit of armor, right? Something that is really there.
다 노아 가리이나요. 두자 감각 때문에 땜보 되게 손으로 요래.
And because our experience of ourselves is like that, then any appearance that we encounter, we also think that it is similarly solid.
nga tapa nga 쫙 nga da pa e mewa zonela nga ngine te tang nga chi yo yo aro 대야 벌써 다 시작이야.
So we have this I which we misapprehend as independent, as solid, like something made of metal, right? And there is an I or a self that is there, but it just doesn't exist in that particular way. So we need to understand how it really is.
Yeah, so
just going back to that verse 17, if we don't realize this, if we don't bring forth this wisdom, then the result is that we won't be able to find happiness. We'll continue to suffer. In other words, we continue to circle within samsara.
Verse
number 18, this being so, I shall hold and guard my mind well. Without the discipline of guarding the mind, what use are many other disciplines?
So
we don't need many other dharmas or fancy practices, right? The main practice is guarding our mind. Oh, right. So we don't need many other tasks or disciplines. We need this one of holding and guarding the mind well. So we will stop here at verse number 18 of the 5th chapter. So out of body, speech, and mind, we say that mind is the most powerful. So if we are able to kind of have this measure of, discipline or control of the mind, then difficulties related to body and so forth, they will not be as able to trouble us. Right. So the point is, like, even if we have a healthy body, good physical health, right? But the mind is always disturbed, right? We won't be able to stop suffering. So this is why for us as practitioners, the mind is the main one that we are paying attention to. It is the main doer or agent. Yes. So we will turn to recognizing my mother's Song of the Profound View. Yeah. So we are on page 8, verses 13 and 14.
Ama luche che teka zula bembo nziri che jata chawa nzamba leme che tegu nyamba nyime chitu che towo ngame tanye na zo shin do ba she jo ama gemu te tonin du ko.
So Vaibhashika, so Tantrika Vijñā, oh gosh, these are so hard to pronounce, Vijñānavada, and the three Eastern Svatantrika masters. Though they label this mother, this limestone-like white elephant, with names so divergent, external matter, a grinning tiger, an intrinsic subject, a crazed monkey, inherently existing non-dual nature, a ferocious bear, yet they all seem to have lost the old mother.
This one, no, tam diga ta ta guma kanga. So what
it's saying is that these lower schools, these lower philosophical schools or schools of tenets, they are not able to recognize what should be recognized, the mother.
No,
yeah, so Vaibhashika and Svautantrika, these are the great exposition and the sutra schools. And okay, so I think what is given as Namrige, what's given as Vijñā Navada, this is actually the Chittamantran. So much easier to say, the Chittamantran or the mind-only school. Just another word for that. So the three Eastern Svatantrika masters, so these are three teachers of the Svatantrika school who were from the eastern part of India. So there's many Svatantrika masters, but perhaps these are like the main three. And so one of them is Kyotso, right? Yeah. Another is Kamalashila, who's technically looked at. Yeshin and another one is Lupin Yeshin Nimpo. Sorry, I don't know the Sanskrit for that one, but it would be Jnana something. If someone knows that, feel free to chime in. And so those are their Madhyamika masters, but rather than the Madhyamika Prasangika, right, the middle way consequence, they're of the Madhyamika Svatantrika school. Right. So here, the limestone-like white elephant, right? This limestone-like white elephant, this is the metaphor for the final view, the Madhyamika Prasangika view. So those other scholars, right, they're sort of holding that their view is the final or ultimate view of how things are. Yeah. Yeah. So this external matter, with names so divergent, external matter, so they are holding that their view is the final view, yet they are thinking, right? They are thinking that there is some level of true existence to phenomena. Yeah. So they still have kind of like this idea of things being solid, like we compare it to a metal house or to a metal box.
This one.
A grinning tiger, an intrinsic subject, a crazed monkey.
And this one.
Inherently existent non-dual nature, a ferocious bear. And so this last one, inherently existing non-dual nature, right? This is a way of critiquing the mind-only or Chittamantran school. Yeah. So the critique that's made here is that all of these schools and their scholars are using different sophisticated terms to propose what they think is the ultimate view, yet they are not able to recognize the mother, which is truly the way things are. But let us not dismiss these completely with how things are phrased here, because the paradox is that although these schools are being critiqued, if we don't develop an understanding of the Vaibhashika, Sautrantrika, and the Vijñanavada schools, we won't be able to come to the Prasangika view, right? They are stepping stones.
다 빼자봐 이나. 예. 로지 저바데 피자라 뭐지 이래도 그래서 이네. 피자 저저 떠서와.
Right.
된다 뭐지 손으로 도스.
So Geshe likes to use the analogy of a pizza pie, which is, I don't know why I say pizza pie. My grandmother used to call it that. Anyway, so a pizza, which is cut into various slices. So imagine that there's this pizza that is cut into various slices on the table in front of you.
다때 로지 저바데 비나. 셔도 아마도 너데비 따와티 티 덤버 추주니 매바조 토요 아레스.
Again?
로지 저바라와 피자데.
Yep.
셔도 아마 너데비 따와티가.
Yep.
피자 저지 추주니 파매바조 토 로지 저바 추주니 고 토요 아레스.
So if that pizza is an embodiment of inherent existence, we could say that the Vaibhashika and the Sautantrika schools, they are able to remove 2 slices from that pizza, right? So part of the problem is solved, but not all of it.
그래서 다 세좀비 따와티 델리 쳐가지고 대 노지지 오다 가로지 밤에 와서 도요 아레스.
And if we come to the Chittamantran or mind-only school, that is able to take a few more slices off the plate so that only, less than half of the pizza is left.
Right.
So at least half is able to be dispelled through the Chittamantran view. So when we come to the Madhyamika Svatantrika school, right, then it is able to remove 2 more slices so that only 25% of the pizza is left. So then we might ask, how is it that the mind-only school is able to eliminate like 70%, 75%? It is. So Nishisanga Lakma dua, Dunshidonga Mebasona, right? Oh, sorry, that's right. Sorry. So how is it? Oops. So how is it that the no, it is my oops. So how is it that the Chittamantran school is only able to eliminate half the pizza? Right? Only 50%. So the mind-only school is saying that there are no true external objects. Those objects that appear that might give rise to our anger, that might give rise to our attachment, and so forth, right? Those objects appear only based upon an imprint that is ripening within the perceiver's mind. So if we practice the mind-only view and we understand it correctly, and we understand that all of these forms, smells, tastes, sounds, and so forth that are appearing to the mind are only appearing to the mind because of imprints ripening within us, then, right, the misconceptions that lead to us getting angry to an object or attached to an object can be dispelled. Because we understand that everything we see is an appearance arising due to this ripening of the imprint in the mind. It is nothing that is existing from the side of the object. So this itself is not an easy practice, right? The Chittamantran or mind-only view, especially from the point of view of Tantra, is actually a quite sophisticated philosophy and quite helpful. So the mind-only Chittamantran view is able at least to address this misperception that these external things that are appearing to the mind really exist, right? So we can clear away that misconception, which is like clearing away half the pizza. Right.
노아 강가 차바시에서 콘트체서 물론 놀고 되었어.
Every-
이 세소나
Mhm.
강가 노아 소지레드 마도 세드 마도 초콜하면 됐어.
Everything is like a dream, say the Chittamantrans, because all of these appearances that are arising, they are appearances of the mind. When we wake up from that dream, the appearances cease, and all that remains is the mind.
됐어. 다 됐어게들라. 자생아 주관도 알았어. 이나 욕찬이라.
Yeah.
다 이제 강가 단단 좀 달하대요.
So, 50% of this pizza of inherent existence has been cleared away through the mind-only view. So if 50% of this pizza of inherent existence has been cleared away through the mind-only view, what is the remaining 50% of the pizza? It's the subject, the perceiver. So the object possessor inherent existence has not been cleared away. Only the objects.
자가 개발체 도보던리부터 가서 말다서. 세좀 비타 로지지 매바데 따와야 쇼이마 하고키나요.
Yeah.
데 니가 제일 세좀 비타와 요가 되선 내기 먹어요.
So,
자가 개발더니.
right. So because this is such a sophisticated system, and because the Chittamantran view can clear away so many problems, this is why actually many of the great Indian scholars and panditas, at first they thought, okay, maybe this is the final view. The Chittamantran view is maybe the final one.
This one, what teji ganga tendo kinja wachires, ganga teya sono togares.
But what we would say is actually it's more like a series of steps, and this step leads us much closer to the Prasangika understanding.
Oh yeah, that is. Oh, that tendo, oh, that is one. This one, oh, that is right. This one. And this one is Saja Nima Ganga, Nimiza, Noda Senamadi, what you would
answer drug it, answer talk to go to it.
Yeah, that day you might tell Macha, Logina, what you might Ragam do.
Right. So Geshe said that actually what we're going to do is, so this yeah. So we'll have one more session on recognizing the mother. And Geshe said that, there are a lot of polemics here against the Sakya and the Kagyu views and so forth. He doesn't think that those are necessarily the point. He says the most important point has come already. So we'll kind of do a brief overview of what's remaining. And then when we switch over to stages of meditation, we'll also switch over to the Bhakta, the praise to the Noble One, Avalokiteshvara, as the side topic. So then, with a mind lifted up in joy, let us dedicate the merits. Changkya Rinpoche, Maje Bana Jejoji, Shewa Nyamba Meba Yon, Gone Gonda Bewa Jo, Doni Tawa Rinpoche, Maje Bana Jejoji, Shewa Nyamba Meba Yon, Gone Gonda Bewa Jo, Jambe Bao. Jada Jemba Don Kundu Zambo Deyon Deja De Da Gungi Jesu Dalo Chir Gewan Da Donje Radongo Deso Shebe Gewa Donje Je Ngowa Gangla Chodo Ngava De Dagi Gewe Zawa Digun Gyang Zombo Shejara Dongo Ge Gangri Rawe Goye Jegozo Pedan Dewa Male Juine Cherezi Wan Tenzo Jazo Ye Shape Side Bado Tenjoro So, if you need to get on with your day, please do. But if you'd like to stick around for questions, you're most welcome. And on that note, does anyone have any questions?
I actually just had a comment. You asked about Geshe Ningpo.
Geshe Ningpo, yes.
Jnana Garba.
Jnana Garba, thank you. Okay, so Jnana Garba, he was one of those three scholars from Eastern India that are mentioned in the verse. Thank you so much, Annie. I appreciate that. Sometimes, I just can't remember the Sanskrit names. Thank you so much.
It's easy not to remember.
Yeah, there's so many of these scholars. It's hard to keep track of them all.
I don't want to get off topic too much, but get confused with the distinction between hearing it called Chittamatra and Yogacarya.
Yes, and I don't actually, do you know what the Tibetan term is for Yogacara? Chittamantran is Semsampa.
Yeah, oh, so I don't know what
It's
it is.
Neljor something. Let me see if Geshe knows. I'll check in with him.
Okay.
So Semsampe Tawadi Yang Tsikjenda Chikyore Neljor Gi Kanisla Kore.
Nori gitawa.
Nori Gitawa, Nejor Gitawa Mare, Yogacara.
Na just a rujiba chir kodore.
Rangjupa. So Geshe said, okay, so I don't think the Yogacara is the same as the Chittamantran, actually. It's actually speaking of this other middle way school, which is known as the middle way autonomy school, right? So in Tibetan, we call it the Uma Ranggyupa. The Uma Ranggyupa. So out of this Ranggyupa, right, the middle way autonomy school, there's two sub-schools. One is very similar to the Chittamantran or mind only, but it is not exactly the same. So although it shares a lot of characteristics with the Chittamantran mind only school, we couldn't say that they are the same, actually, because there are some differences. Oh, right. But Nejo Chepa Samsam Lagirive. Right. Okay. So. Oh, okay. Oh, pets or something. So. Yeah, Neljor Chepa. So I don't know. You'll have to look this up, Annie.
Okay.
There's Neljor Chepa. If you know the Tibetan terms, I can.
Yes.
Are you able to check the Tibetan term for Yogacara? That will make life much easier.
Yeah, okay. I'll do that and I'll come back.
You want to come back to me? Yeah, because there is a use of Neljor Chepa, which is understood as actually meaning mind only. But there's another word which begins with Neljor. Oh, okay. Yes. So Neljor Chepa, it's Ranatana la Nel, Awe Bayata Chana Rochor Rachor, Sa Patapayata Chana Rochuda Che Pa. So if you put that in your dictionary and that says Yogacara, then it's the same as, but there's another word that begins with yoga, which is not the same as that school. So if you so if you say Neljor Chepa, in most instances this will mean the same as Chittamantran. Yeah, but there is also a yogic school of the Madhyamika Sautantrika rather than the Madhyamika Prasangika. So that yogic school of the Madhyamika Sautantrika, or the middle way autonomy school, is not the same. It has many similarities, but it is not the same to the mind only or Chittamantran school. Okay. Did you plug that into your dictionary? What did you get?
I haven't plugged yet. I was trying to listen to you.
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, sorry. I'm just curious. We'll come back to you. No pressure.
I'll come back, yeah.
Are there any other questions? Does anyone else have a question? It's very quiet. Anything on socials?
No, nothing.
Hi, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead.
My microphone is working. Yes. I'm not so good in the Buddhist terms, so I hope I say it right. In the beginning of the teaching, I think I understood that suffering is needed to ripen the negative karma seeds. Is that right?
Suffering is how the negative karma seeds ripen. Yes. Yep. Yep.
So when human beings strive to no suffering, no karma seeds might not ripen.
I don't understand what that means. I'm sorry.
No, I'll another idea question is because not all our karma seeds are ripened. That's why how we are trapped in the samsara.
No. So, okay, yeah. So I'm going to check this with Geshe, but I'm just going to answer from what I understood first, because I think maybe I can help you efficiently, which is that it's, no, without the seeds of suffering ripening, we can't develop renunciation. And without renunciation, we can't go to liberation.
Yeah.
That was the point, yeah.
Yeah, so to get out of samsara, we need to ripen and clear all the karma seeds also.
Oh, okay, yes. No,
Is that
that's
idea?
okay. Yes, no, that's a good question. Okay, let me put this to Geshe. Nganso korwa le drulya gichedu, tarpa tobya gichedu, nganso digpe legi sabun chatsangwa dunge nangshin mingorebes, nganso dunge chatsangwa mingorebes.
밑에 뭐 기분 괜찮으시게 요래서 다 미겨르서나 미명한조 매바조 마토나
Yeah.
컨디고도 미그러was.
Yeah. So not necessarily. No. So no, that's not correct. But what we can say is that if we don't somehow purify those negative seeds, they will ripen as suffering. I think you're stuck with a confusion based on what we were saying about the form and the about the form and the formless realm. The form and the formless realm, negative seeds cannot ripen as suffering. Because those negative seeds cannot ripen as suffering, those devas of the form and formless realm, they cannot bring forth renunciation, and also they burn through all their negative karma. Is that what you're thinking of?
Yes, I think so, yes.
But that's not a state of liberation.
No.
So in terms of negative karma, though, we can speak of negative karma which is definite and negative karma which is indefinite. Similarly, there is virtuous karma which is definite and virtuous karma which is indefinite. Right. So the indefinite negative karmas, these can be slowly cleared away and rendered inactive by diluting it with virtue. So even with small virtuous deeds, as we accumulate more and more of those indefinite negative karmas become less and less. So we're not evil-minded and doing negative things all the time, right? Like we shouldn't have a bad view of ourselves. We also do positive things and have virtuous thoughts. And so each of those, incrementally, those can reduce the indefinite negative karmas. Right. So within our continuum, we have both definite and indefinite karmas of sorry? Huh?
No, I was trying to understand.
We have sorry, just let me finish. I'll come back to you. Don't worry. We're in no rush. We'll get this clarified, I promise. So within our continuum, we have many different karmas. Some are definite, some are indefinite, and those definite and indefinite can be either virtuous or non-virtuous. So when we speak of a definite karma, whether virtuous or non-virtuous, we can understand in an easy way that definite karma is a karma whose action was complete in the beginning, the middle, and the end. It was complete in the beginning, the middle, and the end. But there's another way also of understanding when we say that it is definite. If we think of unwholesome or negative karma, it is definite to bring a result of suffering if we do not purify it some way, for example, through the four opponent powers of purification. So another way of understanding a definite karma is one of a complete karma of killing, whereas the intention and the action and so forth are all carried out, and we kill another being. That is another definite karma. Yeah. So if we kill a human being and the activity is complete in the beginning, middle, and end, the motivation, the action, and the rejoicing in the action, then that is a complete negative karma that has been accumulated. So if we don't somehow do some sort of purification to address that negativity, we're going to experience a result similar to that act of killing in a future lifetime. Right? And it is possible, right? Also possible that we get a really bad thing that happens to us in that current lifetime if the conditions are there for that negativity to rise. But if that negative karma of killing the human being was not complete, so for example, if we regretted the action, right, and it was not complete, then already the intensity and force with which that negativity can bring forth a result is diminished. If we can realize the most powerful of the antidotes, for example, the direct realization of emptiness or bodhicitta, then that can overcome even those definite karmas, purify them. So no matter how heavy the negative karma, it can be rendered unable to bring forth the result. Yeah. So that's why we need wisdom. Anyways, I was trying to intervene because so tell me if I think the gist of your question is that you think to solve this problem of negative karma, we have to experience the suffering of every single one of those karmas. That's what I was understanding and trying to convey to Geshe. Now, did I misunderstand you, or is that what you were asking?
You're correct. You're correct.
It is. Okay. No, that's what I thought. And so I was, I wasn't trying to be rude to Geshe. I was just trying to kind of put him in the direction of what I thought the gist of your question was. So he's asking who gets to talk. Me or you? Kotriwa ngene di roa, digpa jaya gichedu roa, dungel nyongorebes, digpa rerechene, mingo mares roa, jangna, kotriwa dire.
Yeah.
So Geshe said that is not the case. And in fact, he said, although it was roundabout, the discussion that he was giving you was all of the instances where it's not the case, that you have to experience the suffering result to clear away that negative karma. And within the teachings of the Buddha, it's very clear actually that through purification and so forth, there is no negativity, no matter how heavy, that cannot be purified. Yeah. So we need to purify negativities for sure. Purification is an important part of our practice, but it is not the most essential practice. The most essential practice, the ultimate antidote is to realize emptiness. When emptiness is realized, all false conceptions are stopped, and that is like putting a dam in front of the river that stops the water of the flood completely. So a way to understand this is that all of these negative karmas are like branches of ignorance. So when emptiness defeats ignorance, those branches are cut.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. Did we get you the answer? I hope that
and a lot more.
Is okay. And a lot more. Okay, great. Okay. I'm glad. Any other questions?
Kedrup, I did look up.
Oh, fantastic.
And I think part of it is a translation thing. But what I found is that Yogacarya is the broader framework of the practice. But Chittamatra is a specific theory.
Oh, so I don't think, Yeah, I'm not sure how accurate that is because
Yeah.
Chittamantaran's a philosophical school, actually.
Yes.
Yogacara, broader practice, but if you put Yogacara, so what did the word actually come out as? What was the translation of the word I gave you, the Neljor Chöpa?
I couldn't find it. So
Okay.
yeah, so maybe what it is that we've become confused because of how it was translated.
That's what I'm thinking, because
Yeah.
Geshe is very clear on what it means in the
Yes,
Tibetan, but
yeah.
I don't know how we understand the Sanskrit terms is also a problem, because we have the Sanskrit, the Tibetan, and the English, and it
Yeah.
can get very confusing.
난조시아바 세종바 노리바 대지레 메모라마도
Neljer Chöpa, Sem Sampa, so Chittamantaran, Nam Rigpa, these are of one meaning. So I think, Annie, what I have to do is I'll get the spellings of all of these and send them to you.
Okay,
I
that
think
sounds
that's
great.
what-
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
다 세종발 오면 그런 놀러면 나와 뭐야.
And Geshe said also, remember, Chittamantaran is not a completely unified philosophy. There are many sub-schools within Chittamantaran or mind only. That's also important to know.
다 대지 간서 갈래 다 저다노 계셔 대지.
Yeah. So if you want to come to a good understanding of these subtleties, then you have to look at Drupta. You have to look at the tenets' teachings.
엄마로지 발코 슈닌도 와스 너데바게 따발로 슈치모 로키 나온다고지.
Yeah.
세종발 슈치 로키.
Chik Sem Sampa, Jenda Chik Karare?
너데바.
Dodeba. So if you look, for example, at the Madhyamika Sautantrika school, it has two sub-schools, one which is close to the Chittamantaran or mind only, and one which is close to the Sautantrika or sutra school, right? So these will all become clear when you look at tenets.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
사세종만 놀러는 타도 대바 써요 알았겠지. 타도 대바지. 타바.
Tarba.
타도 대바. 타바.
Ale. Yeah.
Tadashi.
Yeah, sorry. So anyways, you have to study those terminologies to get to clarity about all of those.
왜야 돼서
Yeah.
저 맨날
So if there's no questions, we are at the hour, so we can end the session. Are there any questions on social, Dave, or are we good?
No,
No, they're not. Okay, so we will end on time today. So thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. And if you're free, maybe we see you next Sunday. Take care, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Enjoy the rest of your day.